Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Day 1 of Major 4 in Columbus is done and dusted, and what a great set of games. But also, the WWE of Esports is back in business full-time, baby. After the Vegas versus Subliner series, things got very heated very quickly between Clayster and HyDra, former teammates behind the scenes. Scump didn't want to comment on it too much, but we heard through the microphone exactly what was said. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's get right into things. Firstly, with Vegas' only W of the day, unfortunately, which was this beautiful graphic here for many reasons. I mean, their graphics team does a killer job of these, to be honest. Success is not about where you start, but where you finish, and they've got the Eiffel Tower in Vegas, right, kind of signifying we started in Paris, it wasn't so good, and now we might finish in Vegas for the World Championship. But of course, they still have some work to do, especially after today's performance. This is an interesting stat here from Tim that when subliners win the control, they win 95% of the time. When they lose the control, they lose 95% of the time pretty much. And this is the issue when you're playing Vegas, is that you're going to win the control, so you're probably going to win the series. But the first series though was Thieves versus the Minnesota Rokkr. I expected this to be the DoorDash challenge of the day, but to be fair, it wasn't too far off. Thieves took game 1. Again, Rokkr were semi-competitive game 1, but when it really came down to the wire, they weren't good enough. Game 2 as well was honestly just a bloodbath here on iLLeY Search and Destroy. Drazah got this 1v3 that set the tone. I don't really think that Rokkr made too many mistakes here. It was just semi-unfortunate in a way. Drazah goes for this pick, gets the trade on Fame, and then Cammy's just kind of exposed where the bomb's planted. Not sure he could have done too much about that, really. Drazah jumps out the window. Cammy, it actually was Bance defusing, and Cammy is the last guy alive, and Cammy goes to get the kill, but he has no dead silence. So, you know, unfortunate, especially to have a 2v3 turn into a 1v3, turn into a defeat, but still, it quickly went from bad to worse for the Minnesota Rokkr. They did somehow win the Expo control. Funny in a way, because I said earlier today that I think Rokkr should avoid that map mode combination just because we've known that Thieves are so good at it, and it might be down the line OpTic might play Thieves in this tourney, right? It's probably expected that will happen at some point, and the Expo control there will be very interesting. Thieves are, I still think, very good at it, but they did lose this one to Minnesota Rokkr, right? And even as this great tweet right here, let it be known, nobody beats Rokkr 15 maps in a row, because I had some memes ready to go for the 0 in 15, right? Because they were on the verge of being 0 in 15 map win-loss ratio against Thieves just this season. They went 1 in 15 in the ends. Kind of frustrating because they would have been better memes as a result, but it is what it is. But man, yeah, Rokkr, they lose again, right? This matchup against Thieves just doesn't work in their favor. They finally won a map, but yeah, game 4 didn't go their way, and Thieves get the job done. Octane was giving his thoughts after. Thought this is cool, them actually mixing up how they did the post-game interviews. They had some on the flank. I don't know if Octane knew here that he was actually live on the CDL stream, because he dropped about 8 F-bombs within a couple of minutes and might be catching a couple of fines as a result. We know that Octane loves a good CDL fine. He has done for years. But, I mean, yeah, he went on the flank. I thought it was cool they mixed things up a bit for the Dashy interview. They did it a bit differently, but it's nice to see, right? CDL have been catching these small W's lately where they're just getting a little bit more involved, the broadcast, with the community and the flank and stuff like this. It's good to see, and, you know, long may it continue. So as Octane says, subs are blessed, GG's, 1-3-1, but a good performance from Octane, all things considered. A 1.15 at him, highest KD in the lobby, but again, like, Bance has had some stinkers this stage, it's got to be said. Another 0.82, had a tough time this series. Map 1 and onwards was basically just, I mean, map 1 was Afro and Inshallah, right? This guy had the most damage, he was trying his best, but it wasn't to be. Fame is just straight up on the wrong roll. I don't know why he's on the AR, man. This guy could be way more impactful on the sub, but whatever, they do what they like. Kenny's also come good at the time we expect him to come good, and that is a scary sign for the opposition. There must be mentioned as well, though, this from Karma, right, that it doesn't feel quite the same as a normal major when there's no fans, and, you know, some of the casters, Bryson time, they're casting from home. It's, you know, not quite the same, right, as it could be otherwise. Just unfortunate how it's turned out. But look, the major's still going to be great. It's still exciting. And to be fair, the kind of, you know, local feel where you've got the players playing right across from each other, it's kind of goofy, but it also does create some good moments. We'll see in a second with Ghosty versus the Boston Breach. Firstly, though, we've got to discuss Subliners Vegas, and it might not take too long because we're probably going to talk more about the post-game than the actual match itself. This was a bloodbath, and I thought that they would win this series, right? I was pretty confident that Subliners would get the job done here because I don't know, there's something about Vegas. I've not been convinced by them. Yes, they've won those games, they've gone 4-1 online, but I don't know, there was something about that team that I never felt like it was sustainable or just something, right? And their control still wasn't so good. They got the job done on Expo a couple of times, but of course Subliners were going to get rid of that, and it felt like, you know, are they actually any good on LSELO? Clearly not. And they lost full in the search and destroy for sure. I mean, this game 1 hardpoint was, again, it was a close game. They were competitive in the first couple of rotations, but in the end, subliners did enough to get over the line. So, okay, Vegas down 1-0, but they have before bounced back in the search. And if they bounce back in the search, go 1-1, let's say they lose the control, but they can still win the final hardpoint, take it to a game 5. The game was still on, but you know, I knew that subliners would have prepared very well for this series in terms of what vetoes to bring. And after they won the game 1, Kismet made some plays. Skies was going off this map as well. It didn't seem good, and this might be the worst search I've ever seen played, at least in terms of KDs. I mean, look at this situation. We're 0-5 down here from the Vegas Legion perspective. Standy has 4. The entire rest of the team has 0 kills. 0-5, 0-5, 0-5. Like, I've never seen anything like this in a long time. Eventually, Clay and TJ got a kill, so they finished like 1-6, but I mean, man, this was an ugly one. And I mean, they've got 6 kills, the Vegas Legion, and subliners got 24 kills. So, I mean, that just goes to show what was going on in the search. They must just have lost the plot, to be honest, Vegas. I was watching this thinking, what they've been doing here, but they got hard counted, I think, in part, and then they realized they weren't going to win the search, and they knew the series was chalked at that point, and they weren't even close to winning the control. So, yeah, tough sign. Now, I think subliners are good. Now, don't get me wrong. They are typically very good in Columbus at these events. New York won it last year. Different team, HyDra and Kismet, though. I think they can make a decent run here again, but man, Vegas were not even close here. Got to be the most dominant series of the year, right? And it comes in a series that I thought might go 4 or 5, but man, this was quick. And Donny Temp got absolutely giga-fried here. He actually set a new record for the lowest CDL KD ever. This was, maybe tied, I don't know, you guys might remember Formal versus FaZe and Envoy versus FaZe a couple of years ago when they played online in that kind of like Atlanta server game. It was pretty bit of drama at the time, and he had a .44, I think, and there was like, I'm pretty sure Dylan Cod on, maybe it was a Garrison control finish. He also had a series against maybe FaZe. He had a .46, so there's been a few .4s, but I believe this is the lowest in CDL history with a .43. Don't see that often from Donny Temp because he's been good on LAN so far this year, so stinker from him, and it didn't help them at all. Clay was like, lol, GG to them, tough time, couldn't get a kill, says Temp. So they've got to bounce back, and look, they play Florida, they've got a chance to, they will need to beat Florida, right? Because, I mean, man, if they lose to them, they're mentally going to be in a tough spot going into Major 5, given their matches get even harder. So, I mean, look at these numbers. In fairness, actually, Standy even had less damage than Temp, despite him only having 22 kills. 22 kills in a 3-map series is, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Priest, Skies, HyDra, they all went off. Kismet did his thing, but man, I don't know what to take away from that because Vegas completely collapsed when they put any pressure on them. Lowest KD in CDL history, the 12th lowest in competitive COD history apparently as well. An absolutely brutal one, it's got to be said, but things got spicy immediately after the series. Firstly from Scrappy here, who came out in the replies because, you know, Chrome was joking around, oh, they made winners. Well, they made winners for about 25 minutes and then they were straight to the losers bracket, and Scrappy was laughing about this one. You can kind of understand why. And then this was spotted on Scump stream as he watches drama unfold before his very eyes between Clayster and HyDra. He might eventually get a POV of this from the subliners, you know, videographers. But effectively what was going on here, it seems, and we'll come to this tweet in a second, we'll go back to the one that I actually want to get to, is, you know, so Clay and Paco, HyDra, was formerly on Clay's team, of course, the subliners last year. They were beefing a fair bit. You hear a few things being said, have some effing class, was what Clayster said. There was a few other things as well. There's people saying they heard like, oh, don't forget who you came up with or who brought you into the scene, things like this going on. So, and then Hicks eventually explains that HyDra had come up to Clay and was effectively just getting in his face a bit after getting 3-0'd pretty hard in that series. Clay, of course, not happy with the situation, understandably, claps back, and you get all this beef.
Oh, is he tweeting?
I'm not going to say what's going on. You guys can't hear what's going on behind
I need to get
us?
up?
Dude.
I'm getting up.
Okay, I'm not going to say what just took place. What the f***?
Okay. That's an interesting one.
I mean, it's...
Love
I'm going to tell you exactly
That was-
what happened.
Love it.
Hold on.
Thank you, Troy, for coming on. Troy has something to handle off screen.
Please listen. Like
Troy has something to handle off screen.
I'm gonna tell you something. All right. Look, when somebody loses, that's one thing. For somebody to stand, essentially what's happening is that Paco was apparently shooting a video or something, and what ended up happening is that he goes and says something to Clay. Clay's sitting there doing nothing, looking down at his phone, whatever. And then this dude just comes in and says something smart to Clay. Obviously Clay. He's not gonna.
So you can't say the Call of Duty Esports isn't entertaining, right? And this one, Parasite, this is a reference to a classic clip from back in 2014 when Embos called Clayster a ponytail bitch WWE star, basically, because he had a ponytail at the time. So he called him a WWE star. One of the funniest clips, actually, from COD history. And look, very fitting, right, with all the WWE stuff apparently going on in Call of Duty. Now, they did, thankfully, because these guys were good friends, right, when they were on subliners. But clearly there was, you know, some words exchanged and some heated words at that. HyDra admits he was at fault. He says, look, I didn't intentionally say anything. Obviously, I have no issue with those guys. Got caught up in the moment with our videographer and it was not the right time. Apologies to those guys. Nothing but respect for those guys. And Clay says, it's fine. Just a failed troll right after the game. Didn't go over too well. Still love my guy Paco. So, you know, the beef was squashed quite quickly. This actually might be a speedrun percentage, like any percentage, whatever, in the COD competitive scene community for, you know, squashing beef, because usually it takes longer than this. So it was only a few minutes they made up, I suppose. And Clay, understandably, was in the heat of the moment after they lost their series. He was frustrated, understandably. HyDra maybe said something that he shouldn't have said, and then it all kicked off. So, I mean, man, you can't write this stuff. Shame it wasn't caught on camera. Maybe it was. We might see it down the line. But we got the audio, and we got Scump's live reaction, which is always entertaining. But then HyDra tweeted this, and it's quite nice to see these guys apparently made up now. But, yeah, man, Clay will wish that he didn't have to have this drama, and that he just actually straight up won this particular series. Let's talk then about the final series I want to discuss in this video. We'll definitely talk FaZe versus Surge tomorrow morning, Boston versus OpTic. This I thought was going to be a more interesting series than the last time they played online. Of course, they played at Major 3 and Boston won the first time, OpTic won the second time. Interesting vetoes, I've got to say. The Game 2 Embassy Surge was surprising to both CDL and myself. I thought, Embassy Surge, interesting one. OpTic, they're okay at it, but Boston are very good at it, so I was kind of surprised at that. But I quite liked the route from OpTic to go for the hotel controllers as opposed to the LSCLO, so I thought that was a good idea from them. And like, they played the same hard points as before, and they went the same way as before. Game 1 was competitive early on, and then OpTic pulled away as they do on Mikado. This team is just so good at this map right now, and their fundamentals in respawn are so on point. And after they won the Game 1, I thought this was going to be a pretty easy series for OpTic, right? The way they won this Game 1, it's so predictable, the score lines they put up against these very solid teams. Now, Boston, as the series progressed, they did it again. How predictable was this series in the Boston perspective? You guys are Boston fans. You must be hella frustrated about this, because I'm sure you could have written the script of this one before the series even happened. So then, okay, first of all, Dashy went 25 and 15 Game 1. He had, and people were talking about when Donny Temp went like 0.4 KD, then he must have had a bad box rate. He must have bad station. But Dashy sat down at the same PC and dropped more kills in map 1 than Temp did the entire series. So that tweet was kind of out of pocket, but, you know, it's true at the end of the day. And then Dashy continued with a collateral. I don't know if we've really, I don't remember seeing a collat so far this year. There must have been one at some point. But yeah, Dashy, I think gets a hit. I don't know how he hit marked the first guy earlier in the round. He like hit markers the head of Bean somehow. But you know, it's kind of good that he did, because we got this great collateral to close out the rounds. And at this point you think, damn, OpTic are going to do it. But in fairness, Boston quickly bounced back. This was a huge round here from Nero. Got a nice 1v2. Defused the bomb. Shotzzy didn't read it. And if there was a crowd, if it was on land with a crowd, then for sure Nero wouldn't have been able to do this, because Shotzzy would have had the crowd voices telling him, oh, he's defusing the bomb type thing. But you know, not the case here. So good advantage taken there from Nero. And there was a few rounds here that OpTic kind of like threw away and squandered a little bit. So I thought, okay, this is maybe getting a little bit out of hand. And then the control, this was ridiculous, to be honest. Like, man, the amount of chances Boston had, they slay so hard. Nero's like, this is one of the only teams in the game right now that can actually match OpTic on gun skill head to head. Nero, like all of these guys, they shoot incredibly straight. Awakening is a master at getting kills. So is Crimp, to be honest. Crimp shoots really straight. When you watch his POV, it's like, damn, this guy can shoot. But right now, he's basically just a mindless slayer. Like, I don't know if Crimp's kills actually do anything on the map, because a lot of the time he's getting a lot of impact in terms of the kill department and the KD ratios, but is that really resulting in points scored? Not always, right? And we saw a few moments, especially on the final round of this control, where they had a chance to go for B, they didn't decide to take it, and yeah, I don't know, like the choke factor seems to be gone from their search search and destroy, but it's now there in the respawns. They lose the control in round 5, and then it was kind of funny in this hardpoint, right? Because Boston were doing pretty well. They were up a little bit early on. Beans, I believe, got 1 kill and was talking a bit of trash. Was like, oh my god, let's go. And they basically didn't get a point for the rest of the game, and they came back, and Ghosty was talking trash across the stage. So, I mean, man, great stuff from OpTic, I thought, to close this one out, because Boston are not an easy team to beat. They slay hard, and if they can just do a bit more with their kills, like, they would be significantly better and could really challenge. But it was just a situation of a good slaying team versus a good slaying team, but a good fundamental team against a bad fundamental team, and that was the reality of the situation at the end of the day. And that is now 10 hardpoints, I believe, in a row for OpTic Texas, which is getting close to the record. And Ghosty had a massive turnaround, 7-16 to 20-19 to close out the game, and these were the overall numbers. Dashy had a 1.5. The SMGs here, like, Huke got kind of fried, Shotzzy had insane engagements, but it was Dashy with a 1.5, and we saw just earlier today that Formal said, oh, you know, it's going to be Dashy MVP weekends. Well, he has certainly started out on the right note. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.